I'm Scott Krager. I'm the executive producer of Skylanders Trap Team at Activision.
So let's talk a little about Skylanders and how this franchise has evolved year to year.
So Skylanders basically introduced the category of toys to life, which started with Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. And then that continued with Skylanders Giants, and then last year Skylanders Swap Force. And with each Skylanders game, we've really pushed the innovation boundaries by capitalizing on the magic of bringing toys to life, and every year introducing a magical new way to do that. And so this year with Skylanders Trap Team, we're introducing what is our biggest innovation yet, which is the ability to bring life to toys. To date, we've been basically bringing toys to life in really cool, interesting ways. And now with Trap Team, we're reversing that magic and bringing life to toys with the introduction of a new toy type that we're calling traps. And traps are made of this magical crystal material called traptanium. And so what that will allow players to do is defeat and capture Skyland's most wanted villains who have escaped Cloudcracker prison, and pull them out of the digital game and into the physical world in your living rooms. And on top of that, once you capture them in these crystalline traps, you'll be able to actually bring them back into the game as fully playable characters who now fight for good.
Talk about the technology behind this and the actual crystals and how that works.
So the idea behind the crystal traps, which is made of this magical substance called traptanium, is that in conjunction with the new portal of power that we're introducing with the game, players will basically be able to capture these villains, bring them into the physical world, and when you have the trap inserted in the portal of power, you'll actually hear the villains talk through the crystal inserted into the portal. Not only that, the crystal will light up in sync with the voiceover, so it really brings the personality of these villains to life in the living room for these kids. And so kids will have these crystalline traps, they'll insert it in a special slot in the new portal of power, and when they bring a villain out of the game into the living room, they'll see the crystal light up in conjunction with hearing the actual voice of the villain inside the crystal. So it's really a cool magical experience.
So in addition to these villains, there's also going to be new Skylanders introduced, like the one standing right here behind you. Talk a little about what role they play.
So this year in Skylanders Trap Team, in addition to offering over 40 capturable villains that you can play as playable characters, we're also introducing a new type of Skylander called a Trap Master. And a Trap Master is a larger sized Skylander who has an epic crystal weapon basically that they can use to capture these villains in a more effective way. They get like a damage increase. So these Trap Masters, from a fictional sense, were the heroes of Skylands who defeated the most wanted villains way back in the day and became the guardians of Cloudcracker Prison, which was made of traptanium. And Chaos, in his grand plan to take over Skylands yet again, blew up the prison, thus shattering the crystalline shards of traptanium across the land into Earth, and also blasting these Trap Master Skylanders to Earth. And so now Portal Masters everywhere can collect these crystalline traps and these Trap Master Skylanders and use them to defeat Chaos and capture these villains.
Can you talk about the gameplay dynamic and the ability for people to swap between the villains once captured as good guys, as well as these new Skylanders?
Sure. So in Trap Team, not only will players have the ability to capture these villains and bring them back into the game, you also have this tag team function, which means with one button press, you can switch between the Skylander you have on the portal and the villain that you have in the crystal trap that is inserted in the portal. And so this adds a whole new layer to combat because you can basically take advantage of the powers and abilities of a villain or take advantage of the powers and abilities of a Skylander and use them together. And so, for example, one of the things that we just demoed as part of this launch event is the ability to use the villainous powers of Chill Bill, who's now fighting for good because you've trapped him. And he has this freezing ability, so he can freeze enemies. And then if you have a character like Snapshot, who's one of our new Trap Master Skylanders, you can basically freeze these enemies and then immediately switch to Snapshot, who has this awesome crystal bow and arrow, and just shatter these enemies. So it really creates these interesting combinations of powers when you find the right villain or the right Skylander and bring them together in combat.